News from the White House. U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to increase tariffs on Canada again. And he repeated lies about our relationship with the United States.
I'm running this country, I'm not running Canada. And that's why I asked Trudeau, who I call Governor Trudeau affectionately, but I asked him, why are we spending $200 billion to support Canada, to subsidize Canada? And he was unable to answer the question. I mean, why are we doing that? And I have to be honest, as a state, it works great, because if they didn't have us, and if we didn't spend that money, as Trudeau told me, they would cease to exist. He said that to me. They would cease to exist, which is true, certainly as a country.
CBC's Sasha Petrusik joins us live from Washington with more. And Sasha, first of all, what else did Trump have to say about Canada?
Well, Ian, he hasn't been talking much about Canada as the 51st state since the campaign began. But as we heard, he dove right back into it today from the Oval Office, talking about how Canada is not only economically dependent on the U.S., only viable as a U.S. state, as he said, that it can't live without what Trump says is that $200 billion annual subsidy. Now, that's never been an accurate characterization, but it's been the narrative that Trump has used before, and he did it again. He also suggested he might increase tariffs on automobiles beyond the 25% already levied on all car parts, which and more of those are set to kick in next week. Why exactly and what? Well, this is how he put it.
I really don't want cars from Canada. So when I put tariffs on Canada, they're paying 25%, but that could go up in terms of cars. When we put tariffs on, all we're doing is we're saying we don't want your cars in all due respect. We want really to make our own cars, which is what we're doing in record numbers now. You know, we're going to be at record levels in a very near future because of all the plants, the car plants that are being built.
Now, the threat is obviously there, but we have no details, no real idea of how much or exactly on what, even not exactly how many parts or how many cars will be taxed more starting next week, if that happens. And no certainty that he will follow through on that, since there's also been pushback from the U.S. auto industry. Ian?
It is so exhausting to hear. I can't imagine how this is playing in communities in Canada where they depend on the auto sector, and to an extent our entire economy does. What about negotiations? Has he given any update at all about negotiations?
No, there was no answer on that. The only sort of feeling was that this is something that is going to wait until he has more conversations with the Canadian Prime Minister. Now, he was actually responding to a question about the Canadian election in all of this. And on that, he said he didn't want to give a preference or a prediction, except to say that he's spoken to Mark Carney. Trump says there were a couple of conversations and they were nice. The Prime Minister's office is saying that there was really only one conversation. Ian?
So he constantly refers to Justin Trudeau as governor. Even now, he's using that word. When he refers to Mark Carney, does he add a title to it at all? How does he describe Carney?
He has described Carney as Prime Minister in the past. He did not call him governor today. And even on the issue of calling Justin Trudeau governor, he said he was doing it affectionately.
All right. I guess Canadians can judge for themselves. Sasha Petrusik in Washington, thanks for the update.
My pleasure, Ian.
Let's bring in John Dagnolo. He's the president of Unifor Local 200 and the union's Auto Council chair. He joins us from Windsor. And so, first of all, your reaction to Trump's statements today?
It's unbelievable, Ian. He's not even thinking about the companies. Let's take Canada out of it. These are U.S. companies he's impacting. These are companies that have, for instance, I represent Ford workers. They have 26 plants in Canada. We have three. I have, just under 2,000 workers I represent that build the engines for these vehicles that supply 15,000 workers jobs. This is Ford Motor Company. You can't even get more American than them. You cannot. They've employed more people than anybody else in the Detroit Three in the US, and they're going to hurt them. They're going to hurt us as employees. They're going to hurt the employees. They're going to hurt the US employees by doing this. This makes absolute no sense. And I don't understand his logic whatsoever or the people around him, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah, well, so me too, right? But I kind of thought that maybe for you being involved in the union movement for auto workers in Canada, you might have some insight because I really like we just keep hearing over and over again how integrated automaking is across both borders and into Mexico as well. How that works well, obviously, for the companies. I kept assuming that the CEOs of the big auto companies in the States would go to the White House and convince them that they need to kind of retain the status quo. Why do you think that hasn't happened?
Well, they have. They have gone to the White House. They have shown them the integration between Mexico and Canada and the US. They've done all of that. To think that as Canadians, a Ford Motor Company wants to leave Canada that sells hundreds of thousands of vehicles, that makes millions upon millions in profits, that creates thousands of jobs in the US because we buy their vehicle, makes no sense, and I don't understand it. And I know the Detroit Three CEOs have met him on numerous occasions along with his team on the integration side of it and the impacts it'll have on them and their profits and the job loss. And for some reason, he's stuck on that, and I do not know why. I really do not know why. And it's kind of scary, to be quite frank with you. When you think about what he wants to do, he's not only going to destroy Canadian jobs, but he's going to destroy American jobs also, and the companies. He's going to hurt the companies because we're not going to buy the vehicles if they no longer are built here. Like the arrogance of thinking that he can leave Canada, and by the way, you're going to buy our vehicles too, and support our communities in the U.S. Think about that. Does that make any sense? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, well, a lot of people scratching their heads, clearly also members of Unifor like yourself. John, thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it.